The sky was clear, almost too clear. There was an unsettling calm that morning, as if the earth itself held its breath. The sun hung in the sky, casting a golden light over everything below, but none of it seemed to matter. The world, unprepared and unaware, had no idea what was about to hit. At 9:14 a.m. Universal Time Coordinated, the silence was shattered. A massive, unidentified object appeared in Earth's orbit. No warning. No explanation. No signals. Just the ominous appearance of a fleet, hundreds of ships, each the size of a city, descending silently through the vast emptiness of space. The world's top astronomers and space agencies scrambled to make sense of it, but by the time the first satellite image was transmitted, it was too late. The objects had already entered Earth's atmosphere. In less than a minute, the first message arrived. Terran, prepare to face the Empire's wrath. It was short. Cold. A statement with no room for interpretation. The message had no signature, no hint as to who had sent it. The world's leaders, sitting in their high towers of control, reacted instantly. Alarms rang, and military forces were put on high alert. But it was clear even to the most seasoned generals, no one was ready for this. Earth had never faced anything like this before. The technology of these beings far surpassed anything humanity had ever created. In Washington, D.C., General Marcus Holt, the Supreme Commander of Earth's Defense Force, sat frozen at his desk. His eyes never left the large, flickering screen in front of him, which showed the fleet descending. He could feel his pulse quicken, the blood rushing to his head. This was no drill. This was real. He tapped his comms unit, sending an emergency transmission to the president. "Sir, you need to see this. We are not equipped to handle whatever this is. The fleet is already on a collision course with Earth." The president's voice crackled back, panic slipping through his calm exterior. "What are we facing, Marcus? Are they aliens?" "I don't know, sir," Holt responded, his voice tight. "But whatever they are, they're not human. And I'm afraid they won't be making a friendly visit." Across the globe, panic spread like wildfire. Sirens screamed in every city. Emergency broadcasts flooded every screen, every phone. People, for the first time in history, realized they were not alone in the universe. But that realization was not comforting, it was terrifying. Dr. Lena Foster, a leading scientist and cryptographer at the European Space Agency, watched the live feed from her lab in Paris. Her brow furrowed as she studied the incoming transmissions. The message had been decoded instantly, but it didn't provide any answers. It was a simple, direct threat. Nothing more. Her fingers flew across the keys of her terminal, trying to make sense of the situation. The message had a strange rhythm, a pattern buried within it. Could it be a code? Could they have hidden something deeper? She pulled up several encryption models, analyzing every angle. After several agonizing moments of silence, the terminal beeped. The pattern became clear. It was a code. A key. A lock that might unlock answers humanity desperately needed. Lena's hands trembled as she typed in the final sequence. The screen blinked and a new message appeared, a second wave of data now coming through, more intricate than before. "We have been waiting for this. The Terran species will either bow or be destroyed. The Empire requires no permission." Her heart skipped a beat. The Empire. The message was no longer just a warning, it was a declaration. And the phrase, "the Empire requires no permission," sent a chill down her spine. It meant that their arrival wasn't an accident. They had planned this. This wasn't just an invasion, it was something far more calculated. Before she could process further, her screen shifted again, and the military broadcast system hijacked her connection. A man's voice echoed through her lab, the same voice she'd heard giving orders across the global communication channels. "General Holt. Lena, we need your help," he said urgently. "I don't care what you find, if there's anything that can help us understand this, anything at all, we need it now. Lena didn't hesitate. I think I found something. But it's not going to be easy to decode. I need more time. We don't have time, Lena. Holt's voice became more desperate. I'm launching a full-scale defense, but I need to know what we're up against. Can you crack their communications? Anything to tell us what they want, what they're planning? Lena's fingers hovered above her keyboard, heart racing. She looked at the decrypted code she had uncovered. It was telling her something she hadn't anticipated. Earth was not their first target. No, she whispered under her breath. We're not the first. A wave of realization hit her. The Empire had been planning this for much longer than anyone knew. But for what purpose? And why now? The transmission cut off, and Lena's mind was racing. She closed her eyes, trying to clear the thoughts. There had to be a connection, something deeper in the code, something that tied this moment together. She pulled up historical data, scanning Earth's history for any signs, any mentions of an empire from the stars. And then, she found it. A footnote in an obscure journal, written centuries ago, about an ancient race that once traversed the stars. They had arrived on Earth long before any human had even thought to look beyond their own planet. And then, just as mysteriously, they had vanished. A race of beings whose technology had far exceeded humanity's own, leaving only a cryptic warning in their wake. Lena felt her stomach tighten as she read further. The warning had not been for Earth alone. It had been for humanity, a species on the brink of discovering something that would threaten the balance of the galaxy. A sudden thought gripped her. What if the Empire hadn't just come for Earth? What if this had been planned long ago? What if humanity was being tested in ways they couldn't comprehend? Across the globe, military forces were preparing. Earth's defense systems were activating, but everyone knew that these alien ships, these invaders, were too advanced. Their technology was light years ahead of anything Earth had. And then, in an instant, Earth's worst fears were realized. A blinding flash of light cut through the atmosphere, followed by an ear-splitting crack of thunder that sent shockwaves across the planet. In New York, the entire skyline shifted. Buildings trembled. A powerful force had just hit the surface. And from space, the alien fleet descended like an unstoppable force of nature. Lena's screen flickered as the broadcast from space agencies and military units went live. The camera zoomed in on the alien ships, revealing their enormous scale and alien design. They didn't look like anything humanity had ever seen before. Sharp angles, strange symbols, and massive energy shields that seemed to shimmer with unknown power. Then, something unprecedented occurred. The alien ships fired, directly at a major city. The sky exploded with light, as a shockwave rippled across the horizon. The world watched in horror as buildings crumbled, and a wave of destruction tore through the heart of civilization. Lena gasped, her hands gripping her desk tightly. She turned to her console, searching for any kind of explanation, but all she found was silence. And then, another message arrived. Your time is over, Terran. We are here. Prepare for the final judgment. The world was in chaos. Every nation, every government, was struggling to make sense of what had just happened. The alien ships, huge, terrifying, and beyond anything humanity had ever seen, had made their presence known, and their destructive power was overwhelming. Yet, amidst the destruction and fear, there was something more troubling that lingered in the back of every human mind, the message. Terran, prepare to face the Empire's wrath. Humanity had always wondered if it was alone in the universe, but the truth, if it could be called that, was far worse than any of the dark imaginings that had previously occupied their minds. The invasion was not a random attack. No. It was a calculated, deliberate strike by an empire far beyond Earth's comprehension. Lena Foster sat in her lab, staring at the screen in front of her. The codes she decrypted earlier were more complex than anything she had ever encountered. But that was the least of her worries. The human race had just become the target of an unknown alien empire. The sheer scale of this threat was unimaginable, and worse, there were no signs of any Earth-based alliances. No allies. Only enemies. Her mind raced as she sifted through the data again. What did the message mean? Empire's wrath. It wasn't just a battle, it was something deeper. The Empire wasn't looking to conquer, they were seeking something. What was it? Power? Resources? Or perhaps something else entirely? Lena, we need to talk, General Holt's voice broke through her thoughts. His tone was firm, but there was an underlying edge of panic that was impossible to ignore. Lena rubbed her eyes and answered the call. Holt appeared on the screen, his military uniform and the background of his command center suggesting the chaos of the world outside. We're gathering information from every military asset we have. Satellites, ground troops, every piece of technology we can throw at them, Holt said, his eyes scanning something off-screen. But we need your expertise. What do you think they want? Lena hesitated, unsure how to explain what she had uncovered. General, I don't think we're just dealing with an invasion. We're dealing with an empire. An ancient one. And I believe they've been watching us for a very long time. Holt's brow furrowed. What do you mean, watching us? She leaned closer to her screen, pulling up the decrypted codes. Look at this, she said, zooming in on a pattern that had previously gone unnoticed. I don't think they've just arrived. I think they've been here before, perhaps long before we even became a technological species. There are references to a race, possibly an ancient one, that came to Earth centuries ago. Their technology is unlike anything we can even begin to comprehend. The general's eyes widened. Are you suggesting that they've been here all along? That the Empire is, what, somehow connected to Earth's past? Lena nodded grimly. I'm afraid so. And I believe they're here to finish something they started. They've been laying the groundwork for centuries, and now, it's time for them to complete it. Before Holt could respond, a new transmission came in. It was a decoded message, this time from a source they hadn't anticipated, Zarak, the defector. Lena quickly accessed the communication, and a humanoid figure appeared on her screen. Zarak was tall, with striking features that betrayed his alien origins. His face, although angular and sharp, held an expression that was almost human, a strange juxtaposition in the midst of this intergalactic conflict. I've been watching, Zarak said, his voice rich and deep, but tinged with an unmistakable weariness. And I know what you've found. You're the one who's defected from their empire, Lena said, trying to keep her voice steady. Why? What do they want from us? Zarak's gaze shifted, a flicker of regret passing through his eyes. The Empire's goals are complex. They do not conquer merely for land, as you would understand it. The Empire requires more than that. They need to control. To assimilate. And Earth. Earth is crucial to their plan. Lena leaned forward. What plan? Zarak paused, as if carefully choosing his next words. I cannot tell you everything. But I will tell you this, the Empire has been preparing for this moment for millennia. They have seeded technology and knowledge across your world, disguised as myths, forgotten relics, and old tales. They are not invaders in the traditional sense, they are harvesters. Earth's existence is a cog in a much larger machine. One that stretches across the galaxy. What does that mean? Holt interrupted, his voice full of urgency. Are you saying they've been influencing us? Manipulating humanity for centuries? Zarak nodded slowly. Not directly. But they've planted the seeds for what is to come. Humanity's rise, your technology, your rapid development, it was all part of the plan. The Empire knew that one day, you would reach the point where you could either be an asset, or a threat. Lena's head spun. The implications were staggering. And now they're here because they believe humanity could pose a threat? Zarak's expression darkened. They fear what you could become. Your species is unpredictable. Too capable. Too creative. They do not control your kind, and that is why they are here. To ensure you do not rise beyond their reach. So what's the next step? Holt asked, his eyes narrowing. What do we do now? I can help you, Zarak said, leaning closer to the screen. But we must act quickly. The Empire's full assault is inevitable. But if we can disrupt their communications, if we can get to their central command, I might be able to expose their true plan. I might be able to stop them. Holt exchanged a glance with Lena. How do we trust you? How do we know you're not part of some larger deception? Zarak's gaze remained steady. Because I've seen what they do to those who fail them. I have no choice but to help you. Your survival is my only hope. Lena turned to the general. We don't have much time. If we don't take action now, the Empire will overwhelm us. Holt nodded grimly. All right. We'll need everything you've got. Every resource we can spare. I'll get our best teams together. You're the only hope we've got, Zarak. Don't make me regret this. Zarak's eyes flickered briefly, a small gesture that might have been a smile, or a mask for something darker. You won't regret it. At that moment, the reality of the situation became clear to all of them. Earth was not just fighting for survival, it was fighting for its place in a universe that had already been mapped out by forces far beyond their understanding. The alien empire was not a random enemy. It was an ancient power with vast resources, intelligence, and technology that humanity couldn't even begin to comprehend. Yet, in the face of such an overwhelming threat, Earth's greatest weapon was its own unpredictability. But the question remained, was it enough? Would Earth's resilience be enough to survive the oncoming storm? The world had plunged into a frantic whirlwind of survival. After the initial wave of devastation from the alien fleet, there was no pretending that humanity had control over its future. Entire cities had been obliterated, and governments were scrambling to maintain order in the face of an enemy that seemed to know humanity's every move before it happened. Earth's military and defense systems had been rendered obsolete in the blink of an eye, and as humanity picked up the pieces, one thing became clear: no one was safe. Dr. Lena Foster sat at her desk in the command center of the newly formed Global Emergency Response Unit, GERU, her eyes flickering between various terminals that displayed chaos from every corner of the planet. News reports showed familiar landmarks reduced to rubble, and there were constant updates from field commanders detailing their failed attempts to repel the alien forces. It was as if Earth had been blindsided by a storm, only to realize that the storm had been coming for much longer than anyone had imagined. Zarak, the alien defector who had once been a high-ranking officer in the Empire, now stood beside Lena in the makeshift war room. His once confident demeanor had shifted. The weight of his decision to betray his own people seemed to be bearing down on him, but the only emotion that betrayed him was a grim determination. You've seen the destruction firsthand, Zarak said, his voice low. The Empire's wrath is not something you can escape. They will not stop until they have what they came for. Lena glanced at him. She knew that there was still much he hadn't revealed, but the facts were undeniable. Zarak was no ordinary defector. He had crossed a line that very few in the Empire ever dared to cross. His decision to help humanity was born of a deep-seated guilt, but it was also a desperate attempt to stop the annihilation that he had long known was inevitable. What exactly do they want, Zarak? Lena asked, her voice steady despite the terror that churned within her. You've mentioned their empire, but what does that mean for us? Why Earth? Zarak hesitated. His dark eyes flickered to the terminal behind Lena, where images of Earth's burning cities flashed. Then he turned back to her. The Empire is not like anything you've encountered before, he said quietly. It is a collective, a vast network of species that spans galaxies. What you call an empire is a loose term. It is more like a conglomerate of alien races, each one with its own history, its own reason for being part of the empire. The reason Earth is targeted is not due to any particular animosity. You are simply in the way. Lena frowned. In the way of what? Zarak paused. He clenched his fists, his sharp features twisting in pain. The Empire controls vast sectors of the galaxy. They manipulate resources, populations, and even entire planets to fuel their never-ending expansion. Earth, your people, have developed at an alarming rate. Too fast. The Empire feared you would become a rival. Lena absorbed his words. It made a terrible kind of sense. Earth had advanced rapidly in recent decades, creating technology that was already starting to rival the more established species in space exploration and energy production. But the idea that an entire empire would see this progress as a threat, it was terrifying. So, they came here to crush us before we could become a problem? Holt, who had been silently observing from across the room, asked. His voice was filled with disbelief, but the urgency was clear. Yes, Zarak confirmed. But there is more. The Empire has been watching your species for a long time. They have infiltrated your societies, seeded your cultures with their influence. Some of the most powerful organizations on Earth are connected to the Empire, either directly or indirectly. Lena's mind raced. Could it be true? Were the alien forces already within Earth's governments, pulling strings, influencing world leaders? If the Empire had infiltrated Earth on that level, there was no telling who could be trusted. How do we stop them? Holt asked. Zarak's expression hardened. You can't fight them head-on. They are too powerful. You must understand that the Empire's strength comes from its unity, its technological superiority. But there is a way to strike at the heart of their control. We need to take out their communication network. If we can sever their link to the Central Command, they will lose their coordination. They will be blind. Lena stared at Zarak, a plan beginning to form in her mind. But the Central Command is likely on their homeworld, isn't it? That's a long way from Earth. How do we get there? Zarak looked at her with something akin to pity. You don't understand. The Empire has already deployed their final weapon. Their fleet is not just for show. They are preparing for a full-scale invasion of Earth. Your planet is already a target in their eyes. Their homeworld is not far from here, but there are other ways to reach them. Like what? Holt asked, clearly skeptical. Like the gateway, Zarak said, his voice barely above a whisper. Lena's eyes widened. The gateway? What are you talking about? Zarak took a step forward, lowering his voice even further. There is an ancient device buried beneath your planet. It's a portal, created by the Empire itself. The original purpose was to act as a shortcut, a bridge between worlds. The Empire has used these devices to travel across vast distances, bypassing the normal limitations of space travel. It is how they've been able to reach Earth so quickly. If we can locate it, we can use it to reach their homeworld and disable their Central Command. Holt's face grew pale. A portal, buried beneath Earth? How could we have missed it? Zarak shook his head. The Empire has kept its secrets well. The device is hidden deep, beneath layers of Earth's crust. Only the highest-ranking officials in the Empire knew of its existence, and even fewer know how to access it. But I can lead you there. Lena's mind was reeling. An alien portal beneath Earth? A gateway to the heart of the Empire's power? It sounded like science fiction, but the devastation Earth had already witnessed was all too real. We'll need a team, Holt said, his voice tight. A specialized team. And we'll need to move quickly before they can complete their invasion. Zarak nodded. I'll guide you. But time is running out. The Empire's final assault will begin soon, and they won't be merciful. The next few days were a blur of preparations. Holt assembled a team of elite soldiers, scientists, and engineers to work alongside Lena and Zarak. Their mission was simple: locate the alien portal, access it, and use it to travel to the heart of the Empire's power. It was humanity's last hope. As the team set off, traveling toward the location Zarak had pinpointed, a remote area deep in the Amazon rainforest, Lena couldn't help but feel the weight of their mission. If they succeeded, they might have a chance at survival. But if they failed, Earth would fall to the Empire, and humanity's struggle for freedom would be over. The journey to the site was treacherous. The rainforest was dense, filled with dangers both natural and man-made. But the further they traveled, the more Lena felt the pull of something ancient beneath the earth. Something was waiting for them. Finally, after days of hiking through the dense jungle, they reached the site, an ancient, forgotten temple, half swallowed by the forest. Zarak led the group inside, his knowledge of the Empire's technology allowing them to bypass the traps that had been set to protect the portal. Inside, they found a massive chamber, its walls lined with strange symbols. At the center stood a large structure, a dark, pulsating core, surrounded by alien runes. The portal was active, but barely. It hummed with power, its surface crackling with an energy that was both terrifying and awe-inspiring. "This is it," Zarak said. "We can use this to reach their homeworld." Lena's heart pounded in her chest as she approached the portal. It was humanity's only chance. "Are you ready?" Holt asked, his voice steady despite the uncertainty in the air. Lena nodded. "We don't have a choice." With a deep breath, she stepped forward. The journey through the alien portal was unlike anything Lena had ever imagined. One moment, she was standing inside the ancient temple in the Amazon rainforest, her hand on the humming surface of the portal, and the next, she was thrust into a new world, one that stretched beyond the limits of her comprehension. The portal's energy had engulfed them, pulling their bodies through a vast tunnel of shifting light and sound. The journey was instantaneous, yet it felt as though time itself had warped. The sensation was dizzying, a disorienting mix of vertigo and weightlessness. But before Lena could fully process what was happening, the light began to fade, and the world around her took shape. They stumbled forward, their feet landing on solid ground. The air was thick with an alien atmosphere, charged with energy that hummed and crackled in the background. Lena could feel the pressure of it, as if the very atmosphere was alive, pressing down on her with an unseen weight. But it wasn't just the physical sensation that struck her, it was the overwhelming presence of something ancient, something far older than Earth itself. It was as if the very ground beneath her feet had witnessed millennia of history. "Where are we?" Lena asked, her voice trembling despite her efforts to stay composed. Zarak, who had been silent since they passed through the portal, stepped forward, his eyes scanning their surroundings. "We are on the outskirts of the Empire's homeworld. Welcome to Arcanes." Lena's breath caught in her throat. The Empire's homeworld. The place where everything began. She had read about it in ancient texts, fragmented stories of civilizations that had risen and fallen, each one leaving its mark on the galaxy. But never had she imagined it would feel so alien. The landscape stretched out before them, an eerie fusion of natural and artificial. Towering structures, made of dark, metallic alloys, rose up from the jagged, rocky terrain. Some looked organic, as if they had grown from the ground itself, while others were mechanical in nature, sharp angles and sleek surfaces that seemed to defy logic. The air buzzed with strange energy, and the sky above was thick with swirling clouds of dark matter, a storm that never seemed to settle. "This is just the outskirts?" Holt asked, his voice filled with disbelief. Zarak nodded, a grim expression on his face. "The core of the Empire is not far from here. But we must be careful. The Empire is always watching." Lena glanced at the others. Their team had been carefully selected, soldiers, engineers, and scientists. All of them had been briefed on the mission, but none of them could have prepared for the sight of the Empire's homeworld. They were standing on the precipice of a war, one that would determine the fate of their world. But beyond that, they were about to uncover secrets that could unravel everything they thought they knew about their enemies. "I'll take point," said Captain Sanchez, the leader of their military unit. He adjusted the weapon slung over his shoulder and gave the signal to move out. "Stay alert. We don't know what kind of resistance we'll encounter." The team proceeded cautiously, their steps echoing in the eerie silence of Arcanis. The landscape was hauntingly beautiful, in a way that made Lena uneasy. The glowing energy fields that stretched across the horizon seemed almost alive, and the odd, shifting structures around them felt like they were watching, waiting. As they ventured deeper into the heart of the Empire's territory, they encountered the first sign of resistance: silent, mechanical sentinels that appeared out of the shadows. They were humanoid in shape but made entirely of smooth, reflective material, their faces expressionless, their movements precise and calculated. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. They were programmed for one purpose: to eliminate any intruders. The team's weapons fired with precision, but the sentinels were far more resilient than they had anticipated. Each shot seemed to merely bounce off their armor. The team regrouped, their initial shock quickly giving way to a fierce determination. "They're not stopping," Captain Sanchez growled, as he ducked behind a boulder, narrowly avoiding a blast of energy from one of the sentinels. "We need to find a way around them." Zarak stepped forward, his face set with a quiet resolve. "They are not the real threat. The Empire has far more dangerous weapons than these machines." Lena turned to Zarak, confusion clouding her mind. "Then why are they here? Why attack us now?" Zarak's eyes darkened. "The Empire has known of your arrival for some time. This world is their last line of defense. If you're here, then it means they've already decided to deal with your species in the most final way possible." "Great," Holt muttered, his hand tightening around his weapon. "We're dealing with a full-scale invasion." Zarak shook his head. "Not just an invasion. An eradication. The Empire does not negotiate. It does not compromise." The group pressed on, the air growing thicker as they neared what could only be described as the heart of the Empire's power. The temperature dropped, and a chilling wind whipped across their faces as they neared a massive structure, a tower that seemed to pierce the sky. It was unlike anything Lena had ever seen. A blend of organic and mechanical elements, the tower pulsed with a strange, dark energy. The closer they got, the more Lena felt the weight of its presence, as if it was calling to her, drawing her closer. "This is it," Zarak said, his voice barely above a whisper. "The central hub. The Empire's command center." Lena's heart raced. They had made it this far. But the real challenge was just beginning. The tower's dark energy thrummed in the air, sending waves of tension through her body. Inside, they found the heart of the Empire's technology, a massive network of machinery, computers, and alien devices, all interconnected in a way that defied understanding. It was here, in this cavernous room, that the true power of the Empire was focused. The heart of their military, their communications, their very will. "This is where we must strike," Zarak said, his voice low and determined. "This is the nerve center of the Empire's operations. If we can disable it, the Empire will be thrown into chaos." But as they approached the central control panel, something unexpected happened. The ground trembled beneath their feet, and a loud, guttural voice echoed through the chamber. It was a voice like nothing Lena had ever heard, deep, resonating with a power that made her blood run cold. "You have made a grave mistake, Terrans." A figure stepped forward from the shadows, its form massive and imposing. It was an alien unlike any they had encountered before, tall, muscular, with skin like polished obsidian. Its eyes burned with a fiery red intensity, and its aura radiated pure, unfiltered power. Lena's breath caught in her throat as she realized who this being was. The Emperor, Zarak whispered, a note of fear creeping into his voice. The Emperor stood before them, his gaze piercing through each of them, studying their every move. There was no anger in his eyes, only cold, calculating intelligence. "You think you can stop the Empire?" the Emperor's voice boomed, filling the chamber. "You are nothing more than insects, squirming in the face of a force that has shaped the galaxy for eons." Lena clenched her fists, fighting to keep her composure. She knew this was the moment. The moment when everything they had fought for would either succeed or fail. "We're not afraid of you," Holt said, his voice steady despite the fear creeping into his chest. "We'll stop the Empire, no matter what it takes." The Emperor's lips curled into a smile, but it wasn't a smile of amusement, it was the smile of someone who had already won. "You have already lost," the Emperor said, his voice cold. "But I will give you one last chance to understand the truth." Lena stood tall, determined. "What truth?" The Emperor stepped forward, and the room seemed to pulse with his presence. "The truth that you, Terrans, are not the first species to rise against us. Many have tried. Many have failed. But unlike your kind, they didn't have the strength to survive. You are weak, and soon, you will understand why." The Emperor's presence was suffocating. His towering form loomed over the team, each word he spoke resonating with the weight of a millennia-old empire. The walls of the chamber vibrated with the pulse of dark energy emanating from his being, a power that was as much a part of the environment as it was his own. The team stood motionless, their weapons in hand, but none of them dared to make a move. They knew that the Empire's might was not something to be taken lightly. Even now, as the Emperor looked down at them with disdain, they could feel the crushing inevitability of the war they were waging. The Emperor's voice, deep and sonorous, broke the silence. "You are brave, Terrans. But bravery alone will not save you. You believe you can defeat us, but you do not understand the full extent of our power." Lena's heart pounded in her chest. The stakes had never been higher. Earth was hanging by a thread, and they had come this far to face the true heart of the Empire. The portal had taken them to the Empire's stronghold, but it was clear now that the true challenge wasn't just fighting their way through the machinery of the Empire. It was the Emperor himself. Zarak stepped forward, his voice steady, but with a hint of something darker beneath. "You speak of power, Emperor. But power without purpose is meaningless. The Empire's endless conquest, its quest for domination, it will not last forever. You may control this galaxy, but humanity will not bow to you." The Emperor's eyes glowed with a fierce, unyielding fire. "Humanity is nothing more than an annoyance. A brief spark in the darkness. You are insignificant, Zarak. All of you are." Lena felt the weight of his words, and for a moment, a chilling doubt passed through her. How could they possibly stand against such overwhelming power? But in the depths of her mind, a flame of defiance stirred. She had seen the resilience of humanity in the face of disaster, the unyielding will to survive even when the odds were insurmountable. The Emperor was right about one thing: humanity was small in the grand scheme of the universe. But that didn't mean they were powerless. "We won't surrender," Holt said, his voice firm, unwavering. "We won't give up our world to you." The Emperor chuckled darkly, his laughter echoing throughout the chamber like a distant storm. "You have no choice but to surrender. The war has already been decided. Your planet is already marked for destruction. Your resistance is futile." With a flick of his hand, the Emperor signaled for his elite guards to step forward. The sound of metal scraping against stone filled the air as the massive sentinels, taller and more imposing than the ones they had encountered earlier, emerged from the shadows, their eyes glowing with a deadly, programmed intent. These were not just machines, they were instruments of the Empire's wrath, designed to exterminate any who dared oppose them. Lena's mind raced. She had known the Empire would not go down without a fight, but this was something else. She had come here seeking answers, hoping to uncover the truth about the Empire and its plans, but she had never anticipated facing the Emperor in such a direct confrontation. And now, standing in the heart of the Empire, surrounded by a force that seemed unbeatable, she realized just how high the stakes had become. "We need to disable the core," Lena said, her voice cutting through the tension. "If we can disrupt their power source, it will cripple their forces. The Empire's network is connected to this core. Without it, their technology will falter." Zarak nodded, his eyes never leaving the Emperor. "He's right. The Central Control Unit powers the entire Empire's communication and defense systems. If we can reach it, we might stand a chance. But we must act quickly." Holt's eyes narrowed as he scanned the room. "Then let's move. We've got no time to waste." The team sprang into action. Their weapons blazed as they engaged the Sentinels, their gunfire echoing through the chamber. The battle was chaotic. Explosions rocked the ground as the Sentinels retaliated with powerful energy blasts that sent shockwaves through the room. Captain Sanchez led the charge, coordinating the team's movements as they fought their way toward the central control panel, the heart of the Empire's power. Lena's mind was focused, her every movement calculated as she dodged the oncoming blasts and moved closer to the core. But with each step, she could feel the tension building. The Empire's grip on this world was immense, and the closer they got to the core, the more she realized just how much they were up against. Zarak moved beside her, his eyes dark with determination. "Keep moving," he urged. "We don't have much time." As they fought their way through the chamber, Lena noticed something strange, something that didn't quite fit. The Sentinels were strong, their armor impenetrable, but there was something about their movements that seemed off. They weren't acting with the calculated precision she had come to expect. They seemed almost frantic, disorganized, as if their orders were being disrupted. Suddenly, it hit her. The central control isn't just a power source, she realized aloud. It's more than just a network. It's a neural interface. The Sentinels, they're linked to the central core. Zarak glanced at her, his face grim. "Yes. The Sentinels are connected to the core, but they're not just machines. They are the Empire's eyes, its nerve center. If we can disable it, we not only cut off their control over the Sentinels, we disrupt their entire operation." Lena nodded, understanding the urgency. But just as they neared the core, a chilling voice echoed through the chamber. "You will not succeed," the Emperor intoned, his voice resonating with an unearthly power. "Your efforts are futile. The Empire's strength is unshakable. I will personally ensure your annihilation." With a snap of his fingers, the room trembled, and a surge of dark energy shot from the Emperor's outstretched hand. The blast sent Lena flying backward, her body slamming into the wall with a sickening crunch. Pain radiated through her, but she forced herself to focus, pushing through the pain as the team regrouped. "We have to reach the core," Holt shouted, his voice urgent. "Now!" The team charged forward once more, the battle intensifying around them. The Sentinels closed in, but with each shot, Lena could feel their grip on the situation slipping. The core was within reach, its pulsating energy filling the air with an almost tangible force. They were so close. But as they neared the core, the Emperor appeared before them, blocking their path. His presence filled the room, a suffocating force that seemed to warp reality itself. The air crackled with the energy of his power, and for a moment, it felt as though the very walls of the Empire's stronghold were closing in around them. "You will not pass," the Emperor said, his voice cold and final. "This is where your journey ends." Lena's heart pounded in her chest, but she refused to back down. "We will stop you. You've already taken everything from us, but we're not going to let you destroy our world." The Emperor's eyes glowed with a fierce intensity. "Your world is already lost. Your species is doomed to fade into oblivion, just like all the others before you." But before the Emperor could strike again, a sudden explosion rocked the chamber. The entire room shook violently as a series of blinding flashes lit up the space. The sentinels faltered, their movements becoming erratic, as the central control began to flicker and glitch. Lena looked up, her eyes wide with realization. It's working. We're breaking the connection. The Emperor's face twisted in fury. No. This cannot be. I will destroy you all. But it was too late. The Empire's control was slipping. The neural link between the Emperor and his machines faltered, and with it, the Empire's grip on the galaxy began to crumble. Lena took a deep breath, her mind focused. This was the moment. This was humanity's chance. The air was thick with tension, as if the very fabric of reality had begun to tear under the weight of the battle raging inside the heart of the Empire. Lena could feel the energy swirling around them, the once unfathomable power of the Empire now cracking and shattering with each passing second. The dark forces that had held the galaxy in their grip for so long were beginning to unravel, their control slipping like sand through the fingers of a dying god. The Emperor, once a figure of unstoppable power, stood before them, his face contorted in rage. His presence was overwhelming, a singular force that threatened to crush everything in its path. But the shift in the air, the glitching of the Empire's systems, the fading hum of their once impervious machinery, spoke volumes. The Empire, for the first time in millennia, was faltering. Lena took a step forward, her mind focused, her pulse racing. The final confrontation had arrived. The enemy they had spent so long fighting was within their grasp, and humanity's future depended on this moment. Zarak, standing beside her, his once certain composure now wavering, spoke in a low voice. This is the end, Lena. The Empire has already been dealt a blow. If we can disrupt the final link to their power, if we can take the Emperor's mind away from the Empire's command center, they will collapse. But it won't be easy. I know, Lena replied, her voice steady despite the chaos swirling around her. But we've come too far to stop now. This isn't just about saving Earth anymore. It's about saving everything the Empire has tried to destroy. The Emperor's laugh, bitter and filled with contempt, echoed across the room. You speak of destruction, Terran. But you are the ones who have already condemned yourselves. You cannot defeat the Empire. You cannot win. Holt, his weapon in hand and his jaw set with grim determination, stepped forward, cutting off the Emperor's words. We've already won, Emperor. Your time is over. We're not afraid of you anymore. The Emperor's eyes narrowed, burning with fiery rage. With a snap of his fingers, the room trembled as the very foundations of the Empire's stronghold shook. The ground cracked open, and from the fissures emerged the final line of defense, massive war machines, more powerful than any they had faced before. The war machines were colossal, towering over the team with sleek, metallic forms that glowed with an eerie, unnatural light. This is it, the Emperor's voice thundered. Your last stand. Lena's heart pounded in her chest as the machines advanced. There was no turning back now. But deep down, she knew they had one advantage, the Empire's own hubris. The Emperor believed his forces were invincible, but they had underestimated the will of humanity. They had underestimated what it meant to fight for a world, for a future. The team immediately sprang into action, their weapons blazing in unison as they took on the machines. But as they fought, Lena's mind was focused on the larger goal. The central control, the heart of the Empire's power, was just beyond the war machines, a glowing nexus of energy at the center of the chamber. If they could reach it, if they could sever the last connection to the Empire's control, the war machines would cease to function. The Emperor's power would crumble. But the war machines were relentless. Each blast from their energy weapons sent shockwaves through the room, sending Lena and the others scrambling for cover. Captain Sanchez and his team fought valiantly, taking down several of the machines, but for every one that fell, two more took its place. The Emperor was watching, his eyes never leaving the battle, his mind focused on one thing: crushing the last remnants of humanity's resistance. Lena's thoughts raced as she scanned the battlefield. The central control was within sight, but getting to it meant facing the full wrath of the Empire. The team was slowly being overwhelmed, the machines closing in from all sides. They had no time to waste. They had to make their move. "We're almost there," Lena said, her voice tight with urgency. "We need to get to the core. Now." Zarak, moving with a newfound resolve, nodded. "I'll cover you. You need to disable the control systems. I'll keep the Emperor distracted." Lena shot him a glance, understanding the sacrifice he was offering. Zarak had already risked everything to get this far. But now, in the final moments, he was willing to lay down his life for the cause. She knew they had no choice. "Be careful," she said, her voice low, but with a deep respect for the alien defector who had turned against his own people to help them. Zarak gave her a brief, almost sad smile. "I'll do what I must. Now go." Without another word, he charged toward the Emperor, his alien strength and agility allowing him to dodge the blasts from the war machines. The team, led by Holt and Sanchez, continued to lay down covering fire as Lena rushed toward the central control, her mind laser-focused on the task ahead. The closer Lena got to the core, the more the room seemed to hum with energy. The air was thick with static, the sound of the Empire's last-ditch effort to maintain control reverberating through the chamber. Lena could feel the oppressive force of the Emperor's will, but she pushed through it. This was humanity's last chance. She reached the control panel, her fingers trembling as she connected her device to the system. The alien interface was alien in every sense of the word, its patterns and symbols incomprehensible to the human mind. But Lena had spent months studying the Empire's technology, learning its codes, its weaknesses. And now, she had the key. As she worked, the battle raged around her. The sound of explosions filled the air, the war machines falling one by one as Holt and his team pushed forward. Zarak had engaged the Emperor in a fierce combat, his alien form moving with unnatural speed and strength, but it was clear that the Emperor was not one to be easily defeated. His powers were immense, but Zarak was relentless. "I'm almost there," Lena muttered to herself, sweat beading on her forehead as she entered the final command sequence. And then, with a sudden surge of energy, the control panel flashed green. The connection was severed. The war machines faltered. Their movements slowed, then stopped altogether. The dark energy that had filled the room dissipated, leaving only the sound of heavy breathing and the pounding of hearts in the silence that followed. Lena stood up, her heart racing as she turned to face the Emperor. His face twisted with fury, his eyes glowing with a maddened intensity. You think you've won?" the Emperor spat, his voice filled with venom. "You've only delayed the inevitable. The Empire is eternal. It cannot be destroyed by the likes of you." Zarak, his face bruised but determined, stepped forward, his voice calm and resolute. "The Empire has no future. It has already died. You just haven't realized it yet." For a moment, there was a flicker of uncertainty in the Emperor's eyes, a rare crack in his otherwise impenetrable demeanor. But it was fleeting. With a roar of rage, he lunged at Zarak, but before he could strike, Holt's team rushed forward, their weapons trained on the Emperor. "Enough!" Holt shouted. "This ends now." The Emperor hesitated, sensing his impending defeat. His empire was crumbling, and with it, his own power. The long reign of the Empire had come to an end, and there was nothing left to do but face the consequences. As the Emperor collapsed to his knees, the last remnants of the Empire's power crumbled with him. The machines, the strongholds, the armies, all of it fell into ruin. Earth's future, and the future of every world the Empire had conquered, was now free. Lena watched, her heart heavy with the weight of the battle. The Empire's destruction wasn't just a victory for humanity, it was a victory for every species. Every civilization that had ever suffered under its tyranny. But as the dust settled, she couldn't help but wonder if humanity had learned enough from this conflict to avoid repeating the same mistakes. As the team gathered around the fallen emperor, Lena spoke, her voice quiet but firm. "We've won. But now we have to rebuild. We have to make sure this never happens again." The world outside was waiting. And while the future was uncertain, one thing was clear: humanity had proved that even against the most overwhelming of odds, they would always fight for their freedom. This is the conclusion to the epic journey. If you'd like to adjust or add anything, let me know.